talk today, so everybody was
Thank you so much for that. Okay. I'm Hayden, if you didn't know. And first I want to do some sort of introduction first on the book. I recommend this book to anyone who loves history in general because it goes through 53 different topics in history, some that are widely known, such as Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, or something that's not really that known, such as maybe the Philippine War, if anyone's ever heard of that, because I sure didn't whenever I read it. So it's just an introduction. This is Kyle Ward, and there was also another author who wrote this with him. It was Dan Lindemann, but I could not find a picture at all on him/her. So first, Kyle Ward. Who is he? He is the director of social studies at St. Cloud University. He's worked over 15 years as a high school social studies teacher and a professor of history and political science at the university level. Some other books he's written is History Lesson, How Textbooks Around the World Portray U.S. History, and In the Shadow of Glory, the 13th Minnesota, and the Spanish-American and Philippine Wars. So, something else about him that I got through the book was he really doesn't like when people say that history is boring. In the book, he tells of a story. His flight got delayed at an airport, and he started reading a book, and a guy next to him was getting really antsy, wanted to talk to somebody. So Dr. Ward made the mistake of catching his eye, and then they started a conversation. Well, this guy would not stop going on and on about how awesome he is, how women love him, how famous he is. So he finally got to, what is Dr. Ward's profession? He raised his head up high and said, I'm a history professor at Indiana State University. And the guy said, wow, that sucks. History's boring. So after that, they stopped talking and he just went back to his book. So that's one thing I got really kind of mad at, is how he just outright said it like that, like history's boring. It's not really a boring topic if you look at it from an outward sort of view, I guess so. But if you start asking a lot of questions about what happened in that point in time, you can get into different roads as to where to go with it. Yes. Okay. This book is one of his contributions, I would say one of his contributions to the education would be these quotes, to be honest. Because in the book he quotes that history is not set in stone, it is a subject that should be debated, discussed, and researched to keep alive and interesting at all, which I mentioned earlier. And also another one that really stuck with me was history should be written, warts and all. So it shouldn't be just something clean cut I guess the bombings in World War II, how this had to happen, something like that. They should also put in everything else, how many people died, how horrible it was. And his argument throughout the book is his goal is to play the role of a history educator in order to show that history textbooks over the past 200 years have been written, published, taught, and studied by people with personal bias, perspectives, and interpretations of what our past was like and the impact that it has for us in the modern day as well as the future. Some examples of these bias are I'm a little lost here.
Oh, I thought it was a slideshow.
No. I'm just lost. Never mind those examples. There they are. Sorry. One of the examples in the book was the sinking of the U.S. Maine. The sinking of the U.S. Maine, the Maine was ported in or docked in Cuba. And there was a revolution going on at the time, I believe. And the Spanish were in control of Cuba, and then things happened, and the ship sank. And people, at the beginning of the year that it happened, people were saying that it was the Spanish, because it was, I guess, the obvious thing for them to think of. But later, in 1961, amidst the Cold War, the blame shifted to Cuba, due to Cuba being a communist power at the time. So just, it's like how biased it got during textbooks. Another example is the Espionage Act in 1948. The textbook told how good the act was and how it protected citizens. But in 1982, the textbook said it was very abusive and unjust, and how it violated civil liberties. Okay. When I read this book, I really loved it. Like, it was had history, everything I wanted. Those two quotes really stuck with me throughout the book. So, trying to look back through it to see what was what was bad about it, what was good, or what was really bad about it, I couldn't see much until I got to the end. The very last chapter is Reagan's Revolution. I can't really tell you much about it because I only read like a short little excerpt from it, but the book just kind of ended after that. There wasn't any like an epilogue, something to tie everything together. It was just, it ended. And it kind of, I don't know, it kind of let me down a little bit because I kind of wanted to hear like what his final thoughts were and stuff, but it was just something that really hurt me. So, how would I use this in my classroom? One, I thought of this was like using the book itself as a way to do a project. I would get students in groups of maybe 4 or more. They would choose a topic from the book, because there's 53, that's a lot of topics to choose from. They could compare and contrast the topics throughout the book, because he goes through, with the topics, he goes through different years of textbooks, maybe 5, 6, 10, and they can compare those with a recent textbook they have, maybe like 2016, 2017, to see how different they are from all those, and then put it in a PowerPoint slideshow and show them. The second one would be they try to, or when I'm teaching a history class, I would stop after every day to if we're talking about something like a war, we could get into like the consequences of this war. Why did they do this? What was the reason for this? Were there any, my student I'm tutoring, Shania Triplett, she outright doesn't like history. That kind of hurt my heart a little bit. But I couldn't really think of anything to do with this book to help her like history anymore, but to, give her different ways to think about it, to maybe help her change her mind maybe, or just like it a little bit more, or maybe think it's not as boring as it is. So, this question, or the third question of how I used his theory in my classroom, it really got me thinking about what history is to me. And I got the example that, well, I really like to play video games a lot, like a really lot. So I tried to put them together to see how history is like a video game. So when a video game starts, it's just a case and a disc. With history, you can get an outward view of it. Say World War II, you're just looking at the outward World War II. And then until you put the game disc into a console or a PC or whatever, and you start actually getting into the game to notice all the different things throughout it, it's kind of like history in a way. I just wanted to make that fun connection, because that's really all I got. And
That's you. Round of applause. All right,
that
so
presentation was supposed to go better in my head, but it didn't. Sorry.
stop the clock. Did you stop the camera?
Please.
Oh, I hate